Last time I was in Cork, it's very nice to be here again. Several years ago, I was told that the seaport of Cork was the last regular stop of the Titanic. So the news I get now is quite different and more inspiring. So I hope I hope this is not something which turns to SIATE what the Titanic has happened to. So we are work package 1. This is of course project management speaking, and our job, Alina, mine, and the people we are working together at the University of Education in Freiburg, Germany, is to analyze a bit how entrepreneurship education for this specific target group we are looking at works. So let's see if that works. This was you. No, this doesn't work. Okay.
Sorry.
So the point is, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship education mean different things in different countries, different cultures, or however you want to call that. And this creates, of course, some problems for such an international project in defining what to do. So, what we try to develop is defining criteria for this comparison, which then leads to identifying what does mean success for entrepreneurship education. This can be completely different. As you said, 1 step, 2 steps top, and yeah, what then is success in that context? So our idea in this work package 1 for this analysis was kind of stepwise. It's still going on. So what we did, we asked our partners to send us best practices for entrepreneurship education. How does it work in your country? What do you think is a good one? Just pick it up the phone, no problem. We would like to hear it. Okay. So when looking at that, we developed criteria focusing on our specific objectives. Because, as I said, the success criteria can be totally different on what you're looking at and what's your end goal, and come to that later. So then we did some rating in concern with that objectives we had, and then we could identify the conditions also from looking at these programs, which make it a good program for our perspective. So now we are still in a discussion on the question, now how can we transfer such good conditions of one to another country where it might not work because the context is completely different. Yeah, next slide please. So our objective of the project, which is written in the application, which is of course important because you have to tell your national agency how you fulfilled your objective that you put in the application, is using entrepreneurship education as a tool for social inclusion, and then with a special focus on the low-skilled and immigrant part of the population. And when looking at the best practices we have been sent, we had a large scope of best practices, and they were best practices, but not in relation maybe to this standard objective. So we had one that's more focused, like we had female refugees, so you have even some intersectional approach. Sorry. The funding was very well structured. The interaction with public bodies was clear and essential. There was adapted educational parts, mentoring, counseling, funding support, and so on. And we had more or less academic approach, where you make a course, you get in, you would learn something about accounting or whatever, you get out, and you make a business plan pitch, and then you go to the bank, you get your money, and that's it. So this fair enough. If you bring the competencies and have a good idea, this can work, of course, in the context you're in. Next slide. Thanks. Shouldn't there? There's one missing. Anyway.
Was it the differences?
I have the impression there's one missing. Nevertheless, so the point here is there are different. Well, show me the next one. That's the previous one, or the next one. Okay, no, there's some missing. We'll go back to the one you just had, and I give you one thing I want to say. As academics, we usually start with skepticism. So the problem of entrepreneurship education is you never know whether it works, actually. So it's the self-serving illusion of educators that if you train somebody, they will learn something. But this can happen due to other reasons, because they want to earn money. They learn because they want to earn money, or they already know everything. They just need a stamp on something to go to the bank, and so on. So you never know whether it's really the thing you do as an educator. So this is like stepping back one step and looking a bit more skeptical of it. Nevertheless, having this in mind, there are paradigms of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship education which make things very, very different, and also the perspective of the stakeholders are completely different. So when I hear what Niall was saying, I always hear, yes, we want to have growth in our region. I don't care how they do it, but they should earn money and employ people and things, and that's what I want as somebody from the municipality. Others say, okay, I want to have them one step ahead, so having them not going to self-employment, but being a more innovative employee of a company who gains more self-fulfillment by being an intrapreneur, for example. This can work as well, but it's of course completely, and you have other main objectives in between self-fulfillment and economic growth, of course. So looking at this, there are also different views on entrepreneurship related then to different kinds of entrepreneurship education. Back. So you can have this, let's say, show people what is an entrepreneur, working 24/7. This is accounting. This is that. This is how Steve Jobs does it. So tell them about entrepreneurship and how that works. That's one approach. So hard work and you will make it. Then there's more. This is knowledge. Then you can focus on skills. So how does this process of becoming an entrepreneur works? What skills do you need to be a good entrepreneur? Then you have the more like, how can I say, consulting, coaching approach. So more on the personal level. So what kind of personality you have to develop to become an entrepreneur, because you have to see the world differently, you have to see the opportunity. So this is also somehow training for being an entrepreneur. And you have more this, sometimes, I think this is not the most used kind, is this deep end of the pool approach. Have people work as an entrepreneur, give them an opportunity to do something. Whatever it is, give them a task and then have them fulfill it. So now next. What we did then, looking at these programs we had to look, we looked at, we developed criteria. I won't go through all these criteria. If you have questions, go to Alina later in the break. But what we really found out that there's quite a difference between the Scandinavian approach, which we have in the project with the partners from Denmark and Norway, and the other partners from Ireland, Germany, and Italy. Where are you? The Italians are doing interviews. So okay.
Yes.
So we have been hearing lots about funding and the problem that it's not enough and not long enough, and we don't know where the money is coming from, and it's very complicated. It seems to be easier in Scandinavia because there is a much better integration between the entrepreneurship programs and labor market regulations and stuff like that. So social security is better integrated with such programs. This also leads, of course, to a better coordination between the stakeholders, and also the question of professionalization of the educators, because they have much more perspective in the programs. There's a difference in that between the Scandinavian approach and the approach in other countries we have in the project. Yes. So yes, in Germany, Italy, and also in Ireland, there is more a bricolage of funding and approaches, and it's dependent on local initiatives and how you organize it on a local level to come to your objectives. So, which also can have the consequence that if you have somebody good as an educator, you have to dismiss him or her because the project ends. So I see one of your programs was ESF funded, so this stops at a certain time. So then the question is, do you get another funding, and so on. Next slide, please. Looking also on this topic in a more general perspective, not only with view on the partner countries we have in the project, there are still more macro conditions, contextual issues that are relevant for how entrepreneurship education works, or how it interrelates with these general objectives or view that's behind it, or the question, is it really entrepreneurship education that leads to entrepreneurship? So, for example, there's some clear relation between GDP per capita and the necessity-driven entrepreneurship, meaning if you have a high GDP per capita, there's less necessity-driven. Because if you have a rich country, you rather go for public service or whatever, where you can have a nice job, a secure job, without stressing yourself in trying to sell whatever, some kebab or
Eggs.
yeah, how it is. My father had a small craft shop, so I know how it is if somebody has to work like every day, 10 hours.
Yes.
So there are easier ways to make a living. So the saying is, of course, not only GDP per capita, but also the whole security, social security system. If you have a well-organized social security system where you're safe and, of course, you have less necessity-driven entrepreneurship. So, yeah, and of course, this also is about how private-public structures work, and this also relates to the question how the context of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship education deals. Okay, so last slide, I hope. These are the recommendations, and now Alina will say you something about the recommendations. The real Alina.
Thank you so much, Bernd. I'm quite happy and excited to present you the last slide of our research. It is still work in progress, so we can give you some of recommendation at this time. So I'm sure it will change by the end of the project. A lot more recommendation will come. But what we have noticed, and what Bernd said, and the other speakers, is, for instance, the tendency that a lot of educators are academics. So the one involved in trainings, mentoring, and so on. So this is from the programs we've seen and all the others. We've seen the majority, they do not have own experience in entrepreneurship. This is one. So I think 2 or 3 were really dealing with this kind of, they had a previous experience. And then we have also noticed that, of course, there is a more inclusion since they are like primary school, they are used to this entrepreneurship education, whatever it means in the own context or country context. In other countries, for instance, Ireland, post-school curriculum should be, it's more tertiary oriented, so it is all we have here, it's very academic. So you just go there, you learn, is this kind of approach about and for. This means you learn how is this heroic, like Alan said, this kind of heroic, ideal type of entrepreneur, and what kind of skills you need. So basically you concentrate on generic and personal skills. But what is missing is to go is this in-company training, or at least, you know, to have this a more continuous way of learning, in a way of learning how to do it, yeah? This through entrepreneurships, through learning. So, and here I said, okay, migratory, pre-migratory, informal skills and competences, they should be more valued, and in a way we should find solution how to integrate in the system. But this could be actually could be extended to any other groups, because even the for instance, women who had their children and suddenly perhaps they haven't worked for 10 or 15 years, they have so many valuable skills and competences, yeah? They could manage a family, for instance. And in this way, you could take all these informal skills and learning and include them in all this system. But who is going to do that? For that, you need funding. For that, you need really qualified personnel that is dealing with that, that is assessing that, or in a way has an overview over the field and areas where they could be integrated perfectly. So this match, the perfect match or better match, it's quite it's quite difficult to achieve in a way if all the other structures aren't functioning. And also, I think the previous speakers also have focused on the kind of short-term evaluation or funding, and this has this kind of sustainability, we are always talking about sustainability. We have to be sustainable, we have to be sustainable. And then we take a look at the policy framework, this part. Let's take it top down, or on the European level. We have the social fund, for instance, which is quite good, is doing a lot of things in Europe, but it's always limited in the funding. You have always 3 years, 4 years, and then at the end, what do you do? Do you get the funding? What if the monitoring and evaluation are not as they expect to be? Because you are focusing on really very important elements like sustainability, like having this group a perspective, and you are not short-termed in your vision, but you have a longer one, exactly. And because of that, because of this kind of vision you have, you don't get the following funding. So this is one of the problems we have discussed, that this long-term monitoring and evaluation, or this sustainability, should be more in focus. It shouldn't be limited to only 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And here, as you can see, I think we are over this 15 minutes. I don't have time to go into this diagram, but we can say that, of course, this shows that these policies, no matter, we are talking about economic policies, educational policies, social policies, all these policies are influenced first, we can say top-down, a global perspective. Some countries are just really forced to change their policies because a war is happening and suddenly they are dealing with a lot of people and they have to react. Or they are forced bottom-up from the basis, kind of, because people need a change in a way. They need access to funding faster. They need infrastructure, they need childcare, they need a lot of things. And in a way, you are forced as a local administration to do something. So all these are there and have an influence on the other. So the challenges, of course, you see the challenges are here in a way, but the challenges are also about motivation, relationship approach, how they interact, trainers and mentee. They also, the monitoring evaluation we have talked about, collaboration networks. Yes, we are talking about collaboration and networks, but does it really work? Because basically, it sounds beautiful. We are here sitting, okay, we are gonna collaborate, we are like, we want to network, we want to develop a lot of things, but mostly this kind of collaboration and networks are not visible. So how are we gonna make these networks visible, and how are we gonna make them work in a way? And of course, all this, they are interrelated. You don't see the arrows, but I guess if you come to Rome, you will see some more arrows there. And perhaps some more elements. Nevertheless, as you can see, this is very complex. It's quite difficult to just offer tailor-suit solution right now, or to say this works perfectly or this works as well or not so well. But we are on the way, and we hope that in Freiburg at our last conference we will be a bit more, we will have more answer to all these problems and challenges. Thank you so much.